Everybody, welcome back to another Adobe Live here with me, Jesús Ramirez. Hi, Jesús, how are you?
Hey, Kladi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good, thank you. So welcome to another Rework It show here. And with us, we have so many fantastic people that I can see in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. Jesús, we have some advice for you. I think Jesús should grow his hair. I think he just had a haircut. But that's super funny.
I did just have a haircut.
That was Richard Linde, by the way, giving you some advice. RB, what's up? Sam Peterson here helping us, sharing all the wonderful, useful link in the chat. If you're watching from YouTube, make sure to head on behance.net/live in order to place your comment in the chat. So we're going to be able to read them. And we're going to start today by Jesús taking over in just a second. But I want to take this chance to say hello to many more people here in the chat. I can see Michelle Fournier, Steve Festus. Hi, how's it going? What time is it there? I'm always like so confused. And yes, let us know where you are watching from. I am an Italian designer based in Manchester, UK. For those of you that haven't seen me or had the chance to be here on Adobe Live with me yet. Well, Jesús, where are you streaming from today?
I am in the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area in California.
Oh, wonderful. What time is it there, Jesús?
It is 3:02 in the afternoon.
Here it's 3:02 in the afternoon.
In the afternoon, yeah.
Here is 11 p.m. So it's in the evening, and I can see Christian from Belgium, and let's see, then nobody else yet. Je suis très bon. So Steve speaks Italian, French, English. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us here, and let's jump into your screen, Jesús, so you can tell us a little bit more about Rework It and start with today's stream.
Yeah, so before we move on, I just want to say I'm curious to know how many polyglots we got in the chat. There's a lot of people who speak a lot of languages. So I'm curious to know who speaks, more than 2 or 3.
How many languages do you speak? Oh, we asked to see.
Yeah, me 2, almost 3. How about you?
I speak a few, a little bit of French, a little bit of Italian. No, just kidding. I'm Italian, so definitely Italian, English, Spanish, French. Those are the strongest one at the moment.
Definitely. All right, so this is the Rework It page. You can get to it by going into iamkladi.com/reworkit. And from this page, this is the most important page for this stream because that's where you can submit your files. You can submit your Photoshop files, Illustrator files, or InDesign files so that Kladi and I could work on them here on Rework It. It's really easy to do. All you need to do is click on this Submit Your Design button and fill in your email and information and then submit it to us, and we can feature you on Rework It. We probably won't be able to get through all the submissions, but make sure that you submit just so you can have an opportunity to be featured in Rework It. So yeah, the most important page is right here. Once again, iamkladi.com/reworkit.
So,
and
sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just looking in the chat, and we have Manucha Volkon speaking English, Russian, and Hebrew. Michelle speaks cat language, which I think that is speak with the eyes or with the mouth, because that like to say I love you in cat language, you just gotta like close your eyes very softly. And also, Jesús, I wanted to tell you that we have Yumiko watching us from Japan, while
Awesome.
Michelle Fournier is from Canada. So we also got
Cool.
Sweden in the house, and our lovely Steve from New Zealand, where it's noon right now.
Awesome. Noon tomorrow. That's so weird. Yeah, let us know who's going to win the election, Steve, since it's already tomorrow for you.
Tell us about the future.
Yeah. So we're going to get started right away with Photoshop. And actually, I think you had Ferry's Behance on your screen, right?
So let me jump right into my screen.
You can jump into your screen.
Fantastic. And Today we're going to feature Ferry's going to be is been sending us so many fantastic pieces of work, and those were the one at the very beginning, so he had an opportunity to be featured. So thank you so much. We can see so many Photoshop composite, and that's why Jesus is gonna take over. Usually Jesus does more takes more of the Photoshop tips and advice, and of course reworking your Photoshop files, and I work more in Illustrator and InDesign. Even if we should probably find a project that has three. If you have used the project which as Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, maybe we can work on the same project together. Although, as Jesus says, we get a lot of submission, but we try our best to feature everyone. So just place your work for a chance to be featured. We're super happy and super honored to be able to give you tips on your work. But as I say, go and give Ferry a follow. His page is behance.net/Ferry Utuomo. Ferry is a student, visual artist. And you can see here all the different projects. We do not have the project here that is going to be showcased in today's stream. So please, Jesus, can you share us in your screen? Because I'm just going to write in, and you can show us Ferry's work.
And this is Ferry's work. He called it Rise Up. I think it's a great name, and it fits the contents of the design. Also, bananas in the toolbar. We always gotta have the banana in the toolbar. But so let's just jump right into his composite. So I'm a big fan of naming layers. Ferry, you gotta name your layers because it could be a bit confusing, and not just for me, also for you. If you go back, a month later, a year later, and want to work on something, you're not gonna know what the layers are. So make sure that you name them so that you have an idea. And if you're lazy and you don't want to name your layers, just put them into groups and name the group. So at the very least, like more or less what the content of those layers are, or the group is, what the layers in that group are. So I'm just disabling the layers so that we can see how Ferry created this. He did a really good job. Something that I didn't mention earlier is that he has check layers. So he's got a layer that checks the color balance in the image, like the ambient color. He's got a luminosity layer, which is very, very good to check the brightness and darkness values and contrast so that everything matches. And he's got a saturation map. So he's done a lot of good things here setting up this file. And these layers just allow you to see those different components of the composite. That way it all matches. So you did a good job there, Ferry. The composite is very good. I like the idea. I like everything you've done, but we start getting into some issues when we start zooming into the image. For example, when we zoom into the image, you can see the masking that you did with the hair. See these sharp edges? They're very, very noticeable. So I would be very careful with that. And the masking here is not very good. You did a good job masking everything else, but not her hair. And actually, talking about her hair, if she's really rising up like that, then her hair wouldn't be sticking to her back. You know what I mean? And I know that in here you posted the actual image that you use for the model. And actually, let's start deleting this black layer because it doesn't really have anything. So the layers that are not doing anything, I'll just delete so I don't get confused. But you have this layer here, which is where you got the model from. So her hair is definitely not in the right position as if she were rising up, since she's leaning back much further on your composite. So what I would recommend is maybe composite some hair in. You don't have to be stuck with the original hair that came in with your composite. So what I've noticed that you've done here is that you added a puppet warp, and the puppet warp controls her foot, which I think is a really cool effect. But I'll delete it for now. We can add it later if we have time, because I'm going to make some adjustments to the contents of the smart object, and the puppet warp might not make things look good. So I'm going to double click into the smart object. In case you don't know, a smart object is a container that can hold one or more layers, and it allows you to apply non-destructive adjustments, distortions, filters, and transformations. So that's what you've got here, which is great because you can work non-destructively. I see that you have a black layer here that allows you to see any imperfections. So maybe this is why you couldn't really see those sharp edges, because of this black layer. So I don't really recommend using black layers. Usually what I do is I'll do like a gray layer or something that lets you see with more clarity what you have. But you know, black layer is fine in some cases. In this case, it's probably not the best choice. But what we're gonna do is we're just going to get rid of this hair, and we're just gonna composite in new hair. And obviously, you want to spend your time. I would recommend perhaps using a um, vector mask to get sharper edges. We don't have time to create one right now, so we'll just stick with this. And again, I'm going fairly quickly here, but I just want to get rid of her original hair, and from up here as well, like so.
So it's
Because we're gonna,
just, sorry to cut you off like that, but
yeah,
I just forgot to mention something that is extremely important that I always
yeah.
say and I didn't say today. So take advantage of this time with us. So don't be afraid to ask any questions to Jesus, to me. While Jesus is working, I can keep having a look at the chat. As you know, I'm here in the chat saying hi to everyone. So keep those questions. If you have a question about a new tool, about regarding the new release, this is our first stream after the amazing Adobe Max. If there is
Mm-hmm.
any other question regarding Illustrator later on, I'm going to come in with today. I'm going to be working in Illustrator. So if you have any questions regarding your document, your project, your portfolio, your life as a freelance, remember, this is a safe space where anyone can ask those sort of questions. We are lucky to have this wonderful community together here at Adobe Live. So make sure to take advantage of this chat. And again, if you're watching from YouTube, make sure to head back to behance.net/live so I can take your questions and reply to them or pass them to Jesus.
Definitely. Please ask your questions, and yeah, just as easy as commenting in the chat. Awesome. So what I'm gonna do now is just composite in here from a different source, and you can get a photo from a lot of places. I like Adobe Stock. Recently, Adobe Stock added a free section, so you can just select free and then type in whatever you want. Like woman hair or whatever you're looking for. In this case, I wasn't able to find something that I wanted in the free section, so I did find one that I will have to license, but I just wanted to point that out, that they are free resources on Adobe Stock. But obviously there's more on the paid side. Anyway, so the asset that I found was this one right here, and I'm just going to license the image. It's not even licensed yet. License simply means that I'm going to be able to remove the watermark and work with the high resolution version of this Adobe Stock asset. The website is stock.adobe.com. So I would recommend checking it out. And you can also submit your photos and designs and templates and videos and all that sort of stuff so that you can make a little cash on the side with your assets that are just sitting in your hard drive.
And also, it's worth saying that Adobe Stock works throughout Adobe Creative Cloud. So whenever you create a
Yes.
library and download your photos, you will be able to use your assets in InDesign, Illustrator, Photoshop. And I wanted to ask you guys in the chat, which one is your favorite app? So here, me and Jesus are kind of like already, Jesus is Photoshop. Of course, for those of you who don't know him, he runs the Photoshop training channel, and I'm more like an Illustrator, InDesign, even if I started in InDesign. So let us know which one is your favorite app, or which one is the first app that you started to use. Jesus, did you start it in Photoshop?
Yeah, I did. I started in Photoshop, and for a long time I was a big After Effects user, but that was over 10 years ago. So I'm not very good at After Effects anymore, but for a long, long time I was a After Effects user. I would say in the early 2000s. But yeah, so let's continue. So what I'm going to do here is take this photo and just use this hair on the composite, because that hair would fit the composite better. So you don't have to use the original all the original pieces. You can composite things in. After all, it's a composite. So if something is not working, just replace it. So in this case, to make things easy, I'm just going to jump this to a new layer, Control J on Windows, Command J on the Mac. And what I'm going to do now is go into the channels panel and look for the channel with the most contrast between the background and the foreground. In this case, that's the blue channel. I'll click and drag it into the new channel icon to duplicate that channel. And I'm going to press Control I on Windows, Command I on the Mac to invert, because I want to keep the things that I'm going to use in white and the things that I don't want in black. So I don't want the white background, so it needs to be black. Because the selection, and just like a layer mask, white reveals, so white we keep, black conceals, black we don't keep. And at this point, I just gotta make everything as white as possible. So I can just go into Edit, and I'll show you guys something that I guess not a lot of people are using. Actually, I'm trying to think if this is going to be the best way of doing it. What I was thinking about is not edit, is going into image and apply image. And apply image simply takes the layer, the merge layer, in this case, the blue channel copy, the layer in the channel. So in this case, we're taking the channel. And then I can apply a blending mode onto itself. So if I set it to screen, you see how it just makes everything almost white, but the black doesn't change? See that before and after? So you can try using the apply image command to apply a channel onto itself so that you can make it almost, you know, a color that you want, in this case, white. I can also use the dodge tool to make things white like so. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but, you know, try to get it as white as you can. And when you're done, you can simply hold Control on Windows, Command on the Mac, and click on the blue copy thumbnail, and it will load it as a selection. If you want to be super cool, you can actually look at the number here. See that? You see how it has a 6 and it says Control? So if you press Control and then Alt, that's Command Option on the Mac. So Control Alt and then the number that reads on there, 6 in this case, it would load it as a selection. So you don't even have to click on the thumbnail. You can just do that keyboard shortcut. Then you can go back into RGB, go back into the layers panel and click on the layer mask icon, and we've masked out the background. So now I can take this layer and I can place it in the composite, rise up right over here.
Super cool. In the meantime, as soon as I'm here in the chat, I'm gonna look at what the app are the favorite app. Steve is saying that Photoshop for me was his, so Photoshop for him was his first, which he still love, but is a tie game within design, which is the app that made him most money. So I assume it worked a lot in InDesign. Ferry to almost Photoshop. Ferry, you can definitely see it from your Behance page. Greg Bone, most comfortable with Illustrator, but love learning new Photoshop skills. Well, you're in the right place here because Jesús is going to let us know all his wonderful secrets. Then we have Ariana. Hi, Ariana S. Photoshop was the first one as well. Is it also your favorite? Menucha, Illustrator is my favorite, and Photoshop for illustrations. And also RB, of course, saying that Paint is his favorite app. I started in Paint. I used to make beautiful pictures when I was about like 7.
There you go.
Fantastic. So I think there is Q&A going on. I was asking Michelle if she sent a file and she's choosing the composite that she would like to submit for rework it, with the same questions. So now she has to choose which one to send. So Jesús, looks like there is a more Photoshop composite coming along.
Keep sending them. So what I've done now is I've converted this hair layer into a smart object. Again, you can distort it and transform it non-destructively, which means you can always edit the layer. So I'm just going to try to match it as best as I can onto the composite so that it, you know, so that it fits a little better. Something like that. Maybe make it a little smaller. Totally up to you how you transform this. But the point is that now this hair will match a little better. So what I'm going to do now is create a layer mask and just paint with black. And make sure that I have a brush with a hardness set to 0 so that I have soft edges, and I can paint that away like so. And it looks like I probably took too much of the original hair away, so I'm gonna have to bring some of it back. So let me go back into that smart object. Here it is. And I can just bring some of this back because I'm just gonna make a blend between the two. So maybe something like this. So I don't want to completely get rid of it, but we'll see what happens when I go back. Awesome, that's looking much better. I still think that it's probably a bit too long, so let me scale that. Oops, wrong layer selected. If you see how I made that mistake, I selected the wrong layer. I pressed Control-T, Command-T to transform. If you make a mistake, and you saw how I started making that transformation, every time you make a mistake like that, just hit the escape key. No matter what you're doing in Photoshop, hit the escape key and you will exit it out and it won't apply that change. I call it the whoopsie daisy key, because if you make a mistake, you're just like whoopsie daisy and then hit escape and then you're fine. So let me scale this. Oh, by the way, this is the pivot point or the reference point as Photoshop calls it. I guess that's the name I should use. That's the technical term. But it allows you to rotate from that point. So it references this point when you rotate. And if you don't see that point, you can enable it. For some reason, Adobe decided to turn this off by default. It was always on by default, and about maybe 2 versions ago, they disabled it. So it's off by default now, but it used to be on by default. And I like having it there because then I can click and drag it. And now I can rotate from that point. See that? And I can just move this accordingly and scale to that point if I hold Alt as I scale. So maybe something like this, and I can come in here and I can continue painting in, make sure that I don't get too much of that ear.
So Jesus, we have a comment from RB saying, Jesus, the new hair is too wide. It should go straight down.
Too wide?
I think that, you know, like when hair sort of like
okay,
flow,
I see what you're saying.
You know, they just become like smaller because...
So what I'm doing now,
depending on the haircut, though.
That's true. So what I'm doing now is just trying to match this part here, because later on I'm going to do something similar to what Fairy did, which was I could use Puppet Warp or something like that. So I'm just trying to get it, you know, get it blended, and then I can manipulate it. And also, you're not stuck with just one, you know, like hairpiece. I can duplicate this as well, and I can take the bottom one and I can rotate it another way, you know, and then try to, like, you know, have more hair. I can do that as well, but for now we're just going to focus on this. And yes, I can transform this in a moment. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a levels adjustment layer, and then I'm just going to make this make sure it's clipped to the layer below. And I'm just going to make this darker so that it matches as best as possible the original hair. It doesn't need to match perfect, because if you remember, the way that this was composited, it was mostly black or close to black, with the different adjustment layers and layers that Fairy created. It is a bit too saturated, so I can bring down the saturation, go into hue and saturation, and just bring down the saturation so it's not so saturated. Also, you're seeing all these white halos. See that? This white outlines, all that fringing. You can fix that by creating a new layer, pressing Control Alt G, Command Option G on the Mac, selecting the brush tool, and selecting like a really dark brown, but not really black. You want to keep that same color that you had in the hair and just paint alongside the edges like so. And I know what you're probably thinking. You're like thinking you're damaging some of the texture in the hair and the highlights and all that. And yes, I'm doing that for the most part, but you're gonna see a trick that I'm about to do that should help alleviate that problem. Give me just 1 second while I finish painting her hair like so.
In the meantime, sorry, well,
no.
I thought you were gonna take a second doing that, but there was another advice from Richard saying she could be moving, throwing the hair off at an angle.
Right. It all kind of like Bob Ross used to say, you know, it's your happy little world and you can have it do whatever you want.
Or make some animation with it.
Yeah, you can definitely do a whole bunch of stuff. So you see here how, you know, I lost a lot of the texture there. It's just a solid flat color. You can change the blending mode to darken, and Photoshop would just look at the pixel on top, the pixel on the bottom, and it just keep the darkest one. So if there's some areas like here where we have darker shadows, Photoshop will keep the darker shadows. That's why I didn't select a completely black, you know, color to paint with, because nothing will be darker than black. So I just came down a little bit so that the shadows will still pop through and it'll give you more depth and texture. And obviously you can spend more time fine tuning, and I'm looking at the time, Kladi, and it's almost time for you to get started, but you can keep fine tuning this accordingly so you can get the results that you want. Now, when you get to a point that you're happy with, we'll just call this good, right? We'll just say that we're happy with the result. I can put that into a smart object, go into edit, Puppet Warp, And we were talking about how the angle of the hair wasn't working. Well, at this point I can now rotate it and make any adjustments that I want, and I can continue adding adjustment layers and all of that. Notice how the color matching is not that good here. We can add another adjustment layer, and to be frank with you, what I probably would do here is actually adjust the model, not the hair, because I actually like how the hair looks, and I wouldn't want it any darker. Or I also like the color, so I probably would just adjust the original hair to make it look more
It's,
like the hair that I composited in. And let me just enable all these layers, and then I'll let you speak, Claudia. What was that?
no, there was just Umacron asking how you were gonna fix her neck, because probably like it looks like it's supported instead of tilting down. There is a little bit of a pupper
Right.
warp that we can do there, perhaps, to tilt
Yeah.
her neck
So
back.
okay, I see what you're saying. So you're saying that the neck is not, is a question that her neck is too far
Yeah,
forward
it's
and needs to
actually
go back.
Omicron just is specifying. Because when you fall down like that, you will see the back of the neck in reality.
Well, and yeah, in this case, you're not going to be, you would need to composite in a whole new neck. Or what you could do, I guess, is I'm not going to have time to do it, but you can make like a cutout here, like this part, and then you can move that into a separate layer and then adjust that accordingly, and then you will be able to rotate it, and then just do like another little bridge here, like just clone or heal or content aware. I don't know what would work best. The hair is really not that not matching that well, so what I would do in this case is use a levels adjustment layer, clip it to the layer below, and then just try to match it as best as I can. It looks like I didn't do that good of a job in the color matching, so I would have to start adjusting some of these to try to get the color to match a little better. But like I said earlier, what I really would do is try to match this hair to this hair because I like this better. Let me see. I'm not sure how Fairy created some of these layers, so let me see if I could do something really quick to make it match.
Sorry, I'm having a giggle because RB is always in a wonderful mood, and because we are asking him so many things, Jesus is saying, Jesus must fix her nail polish too.
Definitely. I'm trying to see if any of these adjustment layers. Yeah, so see what I would have done to begin with, and I know this is not his fault because I'm the one adjusting the file, but like I probably would have I would have not kept this in a separate so I would have brought this guy, and I know it's not going to look very good right now, but hopefully it'll look good in the next like 2 minutes because I know you have to go, Kladi. But what I would do is I would put these two in one smart object, so now it's like the same thing, and then enable all these guys like you had it before, Fairy, like so. And let me see why. I guess I enabled something I shouldn't have. There you go, that thing. And I could just keep fine-tuning the image accordingly. You also have layer masks here. There are like obviously for the original hair that you had on there, which is probably why it's not looking that good. But let's see if we can fix that right now. This is the problem when you work with other people's files, that you get sort of stuck with what was there, and then you have to figure out what's that. So I'm not sure where this is coming from, but I think that you guys get the idea that you need to make sure that, see, because I managed to make the hair match by putting it all together. See that? See how this is matching now? It doesn't, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's better than what I had before. So I'm just trying to see, it looks like the culprit of a lot of my problems is this layer here. I'm not sure.
So Fairy's saying that he used color balance to match color tones of the subject to the background.
Okay. Let me see what we have here. All right, that doesn't look too terrible, but just because we got to go, what I'm going to do is press Control A, Command A, go into copy merge, and then open up Barry's file here, and I'll paste the change there. Click on yes, and we're not going to judge the entire thing because I didn't have time to do much more. But the biggest point there that I was trying to make was you could bring in hair from other sources, and the hair now looks much better than what we had before. Remember how before we had those straight edges? It didn't look like a good cutout. And the way that you actually, Fairy, the way that you added you added a lot of noise. I like noise, but this is probably more than I would add. You can barely tell that there was a cut here. You can do a much better blending than me with more time. But the important thing and the whole point of what I was trying to show is that you can bring hair from other sources and make it match and look more and make it look better so that the composite doesn't look so unrealistic with the sharp edges and the unnatural angle of the hair.
Fantastic. So we have this beautiful rework. Can we just see can you double click on the hand tool so we see the full thing, please?
Yes, and what I'll do as well is I'll go into the history panel and I'll add a snapshot by clicking on this camera, and we can see the original and the after. Obviously, I need to fix the leg just like you had it there. I just didn't have time to do it, Fairy. But again, the main point of this, I guess, this stream was her hair. So before and after.
Fantastic. So I'm just gonna see if there is any other question. It looks there was no other question here.
It looks like your dad is in the chat.
My dad is in the chat. It's almost midnight. He needs to go to sleep. As soon as my dad is learning how to use Photoshop, I cannot believe it. That's the beauty of those apps. Like, I'm not gonna tell his age, over 70s, but he's definitely enjoying learning Photoshop in his spare time. So, ciao, Dad. Thank you so much for being here. Ciao, Papa, for those of you who know Italian, is in the chat. And I've also seen before that my mom is there, but she's being quiet. I love the way that they are supporting us. Probably they're in bed watching Adobe Live. Fantastic. Right. So it's time to jump now into
your screen.
Into another fantastic artist. So let me just find the right screen. And here we are. So I've seen her before in the chat. I'm talking about Menucha Volkov. She's based in New York, USA, and she submitted some wonderful posters created in Adobe Illustrator.
Awesome.
Macron was saying regarding your composite that he blends well. And Ali Hassan is in the chat. Hi guys, what's up? Thank you so much for joining us. Right, so if you're tuning in right now, Jesus has just finished to rework our amazing Fairy Utuomo Photoshop composite. Fairy is saying thank you very much for the rework, Jesus. And I'm about to jump right into Illustrator for some tips regarding Menucha Volkov artwork. Now, before jumping into the tips, I wanted to also make sure that you go ahead, and give it a little follow to Menucha Volkov. We are here to support you. So I'm going to show a little zoom here on our address, which is behance.net/Menucha Volkov, just her name. And you can explore all the other beautiful work that she created. I can see a lot of packaging and different posters. But let's open the Illustrator file. So here it is. This is the file as it presented itself. And at first glance, before I approach other works from someone else, I always try to understand the general approach to a work. So the first thing that I thought in here, I know that you're, of course, speaks loud. That is a work that is typography based. We have a lot of beautiful letters, and we have a lot of typography and a lot of informations as well. So first of all, you definitely caught my eye. I'm a typography fan, although I've probably created two typefaces in my career as a designer, but I really love to dig into fonts and typography. So that definitely caught my eye, and also I think you used a beautiful color palette, but we're going to go into details on how to help you to perhaps clean up this file a little. First note I wanted to make, besides saying well done, amazing work, was regarding the layers. So when I approached the files, I was struggling a little bit because I know that in Illustrator can get super hectic with layers, absolutely. So perhaps name those layers, or when you start design, trying to think and organize your workflow. For example, you can create a layer for poster number 1, and then inside you do the text, or the just kind of split all the different part, the component of your poster A or first poster into one layers, and then you can do the same for the second poster. At the moment, when I go and deselect, and I'm going to zoom out again, and I just go and toggle the visibility of the layers, I can see that some control the guides, some control the text all together. So it doesn't speak to me like if there is a structure. So that's my first tips of the day. When you work in Illustrator and you end up working with a lot of different elements, make sure to stay organized and make sure to structure your workflow ahead. So not only name your layer, that's more for you and for your fellow designer that are going to be working with you, but also make sure that the structure has some sort of sense. It doesn't matter which path you decide to follow. This is the beauty of, you know, diversity. You can choose whatever makes sense to you, but at least it needs to speak a sort of structure. And if there is a structure that I perhaps haven't picked up, please let me know. I saw that you were in the chat. If you're still in the chat, I can see some Russian in the chat. Jesus, I don't know if you can read it. I know there was someone else in the chat.
I can't read Russian.
I tried. And also we have Tyler Abbott and Akradine joining us now. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Right. So Kristen is saying Illustrator. Right. I'm happy as well. Now, before we dive in, I just needed and wanted to give you a little bit of information, because it's wonderful when work like that give you an inspiration of style and a little bit of history of design. I'm just going to keep it extremely short, but what I perceived and what I imagined, what I saw in my mind as soon as I saw those file from Menucha. And by the way, Menucha, tell me if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, because I'm trying, but I'm known to butcher name and English in general, so I apologize in advance for that. But I want to jump real quick into my web browser, because I think it's worth to mention Jean Tichold. I'm probably butchering his name as well, which is a famous designer of the 20th centuries, and he was pretty much the founder of modernism. So you see a lot of typographical fonts, a lot of shapes, a lot of text around shapes. And let me know, Manucha, if you were inspired by Jean Tichold, because when I saw your posters a little bit with a color palette, it definitely spoke to me regarding modernism. And also, since we're talking about typography, and by the way, if you know Penguin Books, Jean Tichold is the one who designed their identities. And we were talking about typography being Manucha's file, very typographical poster. So definitely look at some history of design for inspiration if you want a little bit more. Always go back to inspiration. The greatest designer. I was hosting a wonderful illustrator just this week, Janet. She worked with amazing brand, and she still went back to their drawing board, to mood boards, to inspiration, to seek inspiration there. And again, those are some of the work from Jean Tichold related that I found on Behance, because that's my second step. First, I do a general research, Pinterest, Google, and then I go into Behance and I just type whatever inspiration is. So just by putting Jean Tichold name, you can see all the people that have tagged themselves because they are inspired to his work. And
Claudia, sorry for interrupting, but it's pronounced, and I hope I get it right, Menuha, without the C, but it's okay, is what she said.
Oh, Menuha. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jesus, for pointing that out. So Menuha, and by the way, Ferry, I saw is leaving. He had to have an online school. I think I read it in the message before. So bye, Ferry. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us. Christian saying constructivism. So Christian, I will say perhaps modernism is the like kind of father of all ism, but let me know if you know more than me. I'm always happy here to learn as well. What I wanted to point it out is that you can do this mood board also in Behance by clicking on anything that you find is inspiring. So I'm gonna perhaps check out this project. And also something that you may know or not know is that you can create mood boards right on Behance. So you can click on add to mood board and you'll be able to create perhaps a new mood board. I can call this one modernism. And then click on create and save, and the artwork that is on Behance will be displayed within your mood board folder. So you always have this inspiration there, and you can also share it with other team members on Behance. So keep that in mind. And a very last thing before we jump back into Illustrator is to go and check out fonts.adobe.com, because we're talking about John Tishold. John Tishold was the designer behind these wonderful, wonderful font that I think that is worth mentioning, because there's been many here of Helvetica. Now fonts are very chunky, so I think it's always nice to bring back some Bodoni, some Sabon. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that with a correct accent as well, but if you head on fonts.adobe.com, let me just go back to the main homepage so you can see the journey here. All you have to do is then go ahead and click on the little search bar and place the name of the font that you're looking for. In this case, Sabon, and as you can see, it comes out with a full family of 4 different weights. We got Roman, Italic, Bold, and Bold Italic. And if we wish to use it in our project, all we have to do is to click on Activate Font, and boom, it was successful. It's ready to be used in all my Creative Cloud app, which is super useful. Also, you can find and explore fonts simply by going to the Adobe Fonts page and start to use tags or also classifications. But I'm going to leave you to it, and I'm going to leave you spend more time on these amazing tools. But I think take advantage of Behance, take advantage of Adobe Fonts. The amazing Adobe app come filled with so many wonderful service next to it.
And one thing to add, and actually I learned this while working with Sam during my getting started a couple of days ago. Sam Peterson left us a comment when he was telling us that now you can have the fonts.adobe.com on all Creative Cloud subscriptions, including single app.
Ooh, super exciting. So you don't need to have the full Creative Cloud in order to activate and access your fonts.
Right. Even if you have the photography plan in Photoshop, you can still have access to the fonts.adobe.com fonts. So super, super cool. And also portfolio.adobe.com. If you want to have a website, if you don't have a website where you want to display your work, I know you can display your work with Behance, but if you wanted more of a website, you have a portfolio.adobe.com, which is a little bit like Squarespace in some ways. I guess you can compare it, where you can have create a website from a template and add your own content, and that comes with any Creative Cloud subscription as well.
So Sus, while you were talking, I actually built my little own Adobe portfolio. So I can show you a little bit of the behind the scene, but here it is. You can create over effects, and you can access it if you want to see what I've done here, just simply by going on my Behance, and you have it there under my profile. And that's a fantastic way to create a website, because it simply just grabs all the projects that are on your Behance and it just publishes them. Publish them there. I don't know, it's almost midnight, so please forgive my English. It's getting worse at every minute, I guess. Right. Fantastic. So yeah, that's also portfolio.adobe.com. So many amazing services. But let's jump back into Menuha work here, because I really want to give you some tips in order to take your workflow a little bit faster and maybe a little bit cleaner for next time, for next posters, bearing in mind that I think you've done a fantastic job. So as I said, first thing, structure a layer. So the way that I would have worked it out is just literally create a new layer and just name it with the name of the first file, because also here I can see that we have more layer also knitted inside the layer and nothing is named. So I really have to go, and some items were also locked, so when I tried to move some letters I couldn't use them, and I couldn't really find them. As you can see, we have 2 items here that are locked, but it just becomes very, very hard to find content. And again, totally understandable. It gets very hectic in Illustrator, so that's why make sure to find a structure per artboard, or simply just all the letters maybe is even more useful, so you can just bear in mind the structure of what needs to be appearing above, and you just gonna work faster. Now my second tips is on the guides. Again, guides get hectic. I don't feel like I have to give you much advice in the composition. It looks very well considered. That's why I'm going a little bit more technical with tips that will help you to keep your file cleaner, because I think that you've done a fantastic job in terms of, you know, structuring the general layout. Perhaps something that I wouldn't do is to work with a artboard so close to each other, because look what happens here. If I do have this artboard selected, and that's probably why you have locked some of those layers here, but if I move the artboard, I end up moving all the other letters that belong to the other project. So I'm basically limiting myself and limiting the way that I can move my artwork around my file, my pasteboard, because otherwise the entire workspace get compromised, even the other artboard. So again, make sure that you keep distance between artboard in order to allow some out space there. Also, for those of you that don't know it, there is this new amazing feature, I think that was just brought in last year, that enables you to show your work in trim view. So let's say that your art director, your client walks in, you didn't have a time to create a nice poster. All you have to do is to go under window view and select trim view. Once you click on trim view, as a magic, all the mess disappears and the file looks nice. So Manuha, if you're presenting those files and you don't have time to showcase them, to clean them up, but you want to showcase them real quick in Illustrator, trim view is a fantastic way to make everything disappear and having the file with your finished trimming. Although here, as you can see, we have a little bit of the G peeking out, and that can also be helpful to have a general view of the file, so you can see that, you know, that shouldn't really be there. Right, let's go back into our normal view. You can also check out another fantastic view is the skeleton or outline view, and you can switch in between by using Command Y or Control Y if you're using Windows. But again, I was say that let's talk about the guides, because there are so many guides that go across all the document, and how do I know if these guides is, you know, affecting which artboard really? So a fantastic trick that I want to show you, and what I'm going to do here is perhaps copy the artboard and drag it just outside so we can have a view of this artboard separate from the others. And all I have to do here is to click once on my artboard tool, which you can find on your toolbar on the left on the document, and then press on return or double click in order to see the size. I can see that the size of the document is 11 inches by 17 inches. Then once I know the size, all I have to do is add back to my rectangle tool and click once on the corner, and I'm going to zoom in for you to see that once you hover on the very corner, there is a little smart guide in purple telling you that you are intersecting. So you don't need to zoom in even more, because it's just telling you, and I'm going to zoom in on my screen so you can read it better. It's just telling you that it is actually intersecting the origin of the artboard with the origin of the rectangle tool. Fantastic. Then just simply click once, and you can type in the measurement of the artboard. In this case is 11 by 17. I just copied that before from our artboard, and press on OK. And you will find a new shape that will be the same size of the rectangle. Then the way that I will proceed further in order to create some bespoke guides that don't need to affect the entire workspace is to head under the Object menu and select Path. Then from Path, I will select Split into Grid. Just here is almost at the bottom, and you can start creating a grid with the dimension that you prefer. Click on Preview so you can start to see the grid taking place live. And in this case, again, I assume you will do that before you start designing, not afterwards, because that's where guides are useful for, to help you create structure in your document. I will then create further a structure, maybe of 3 columns, whatever you prefer. You can also set the width of the single guides, so how thick you want the guides to be, which is also coming next to the gutter. The gutter is different from the width though, because the gutter sets the space in between the guides. As you can see, just kind of open up our columns. And usually I always suggest to have gutters in between your rows and your columns, because you allow some breathing space, which is consistent throughout the document. When you are done, and again, I'm just gonna, let's give it like a 0.25 inches in both cases, just to create this sort of grid, and I'm gonna click on OK. Now, the beauty of having this sort of grids compared to the guide is also that with the guides you cannot have you cannot have this sort of gutter structure. Then simply using one shortcut, which is Command 5, boom, your shape, which is then split into a grid, it becomes guides. And the guides work exactly like any other guides. So they're there. If you press Command semicolon, they disappear. So you can hide them. If you press Shift Command semicolon, you can lock them. So they're real guides. Even if it was a shape, we actually use them as a guides. I don't know. I'm going to zoom in. I don't know if you can see it. Now, the beauty of using these is that, look, it's not affecting anything around me. Everything is nice and contained within the document. So any of my document there is getting affected by it, which I think is pretty neat and pretty cool. Again, I'm an organized freak, as Suze knows. I have to clean up everything. I have to clean my desk, clean the house in order to think right. So I think that this is a great tip to work in a little bit more organized way. So you don't end up with all these guides, which are useful, but they tend to be messy unless you then, perhaps have to work into different document per each different posters if you really want to go ahead with these guide structures. There is any question, any comment?
No questions in the chat so far. Let us know if you guys have any questions about anything of the things that Kladi just showed, the guides or anything like that.
Fantastic. I see that we don't have much time at all. Which
no, we have about 4 minutes, maybe a little less.
I'm just going to press Command Z to undo what I've done because I want to come back to an original poster. I noticed that I moved a lot of stuff here. And something that I wanted to also advise is make sure, again, layer structure. When you structure your layer, what I will do is to have always a layer that I call live text where you will keep. So let's go ahead and find this A. So in order to find your file, once you, first of all, you click on the file, you see the color of the bounding box that tells you the color of the layer. So I know already that I need to look in this blue stack. Then if you look at the right, you can see that there is a little color activated here that tells me, hey, this is the layer that you have selected. So it just lets you know the selection. So in this case, what I will do, I will have this letter A called A and then maybe live text, which tells me that that's the A that is editable. And then I'm just gonna duplicate it. So press Command C and press Command F to paste it on front. And I'm gonna be calling this one outlined. And I'm gonna be calling this one outlined because I'm gonna go back in to my type and select. I always use the shortcut, so I need to make sure that I find it into the margin. I'm probably going to give you the create outline. It says Shift Command O. I always do it with the magic shortcut, but I wanted to show it from the menu. So it's type create outlines. So once you click that, the shape, the letters becomes a shape, and it allows you to do many more things. Works with shape builders, work with the pathfinder, or perhaps I've seen that you placed this text on a path. You can use this shape as the path. So I'm just gonna copy quickly this cropped apex and remove it, and then I'm gonna use the type on a tool, the type on a path tool, and then click once in order to use it. It looks like it's a compound path here because, again, I don't know the structure of the layers, so I'm just gonna try it with a different path over here. And then with the type on a path tool, unfortunately, that's the problem.
A little less than 2 minutes, Kladi.
That's the problem with the, thank you, Suze, with someone else work. It looks like it was a compound path. So I just made a quick path, which was a rectangle. And then again, going into the type tool and type on a path tool, you can click once and then press Command V to copy your text. Now, of course, imagine doing that on a letter. I don't know, probably, you think I can do it on a letter? Think I have 1 minute?
Yeah, you have 1 minute.
Okay, so I've just created a letter A here. It's very small, but Shift Command O to outline it, and I'm gonna make it bigger. And then again, I'm gonna press on the type tool and type on a path and click once in order to create, oh, so it looks like it's a compound path. If you ever find this error, and again, you can see that's the beauty of working live, the best way to solve it is to go and under object and make sure that where compound path, you release the compound path. In this case, there was the path with our letter A. But since we are working with just a live text over here, what we can do is just click on the text, and again now clicking on a path. Here we go. So we released the compound path, and we were able to use the actual shape of a letter to place our text. I think it's time to say goodbye,
Yes.
unfortunately. So make sure to submit your work. Let me go back into our website here. Remember, iamkladi.com/rework it. And by the way, if you head to my website, I have a free branding bundle. I'm giving away a lot of different branding tools, so feel free to go and check it out. There are a lot of tools here for your branding. But if you want to take part to rework it, make sure to head on iamkladi.com/rework it and click on submit your design, and in order to fill in the form and throw your design at us. We're always excited to look at your work. Thank you so much to Ferry. Thank you so much for those of you that Menoha, I guess. Sorry if I again mispronounce your name. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, me and Jesus are also on Instagram. My Instagram is at iamkladi, and Jesus is which one? Which Instagram?
Photoshop training channel at JR from PTC, and I just pasted the link to my new tutorial in the chat. I just published a brand new tutorial today in YouTube, so you can check it out.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, everyone. As usual, it's a fantastic pleasure to be here with you. We look forward to your work in order to rework it tomorrow, same time. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.